I'm Brandon Ellrich. My publication is Brandon Ellrich is So Gay. And I'm here today with, oh, I meant to ask you how you say your last name.
It's Rhein, Walter Rhein.
Right.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
I hear other people say it, but I don't know if they're saying it right. I've
Yeah,
never heard you say it, so I thought I better just ask you.
well, that's like the Americanized version because I've heard like German-speaking people would say rain, but it's just we've gotten used to it that way. But either way, it's like totally, it's respectful either way. I'm not a stickler on that.
Yeah.
Not a stickler on
Well,
that.
I always try to get people's names right if
Yeah,
I
yeah. Me
if
too.
I
Me too. I
can.
appreciate that. Hello, all you
So,
wonderful people.
hello everybody. Oh yeah, I meant to open up I need to go to the chat and open that up too.
I've got it over here. Everybody's just joining. I'm seeing some hearts though. Thanks for the hearts, people. Keep smashing those hearts. We need it on this holiday with everything that's going on. I hope you've been feeling good, but I've been just this year. I mean, it's like this year was hard anyway. And then it's like, and holidays should be good, but it's always just kind of extra stress. And I'm ready for 2025 to be over. Really
Yeah.
ready. So hoping we have some good days between now and then.
Yeah, I've been feeling all right. I mean, I've been busy doing all my stuff on Substack and stuff. So
Yeah.
I've kind of blocked out the rest of the world basically.
It's the only way to survive, actually, lately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine though, like going on like a month long hiking trip with no access to the internet. Like, what kind of world would you come back to if there's any world at all? It would be just I kind of tempted to just
Yeah.
do that though, like have the next 3 years just sleep through them or something. See what you wake up to.
That
Oh
would be
man.
okay. Actually, I remember Ben was one of your lives not too long ago. Ben was talking about going out. He did
Oh yeah,
a
yeah,
kind
yeah. With his camping, yep,
yeah, went out in the woods without any devices or whatever. But yeah.
yeah. Oh man, wonderful
So
people. Thank you all for being here.
I reached out to you and wanted to see if you wanted to talk about writing. And I know you talk to a lot of different writers and they kind of give you different questions that you discuss and go over. And a lot of them are kind of, I would think, common to a lot of creators on Substack or other platforms too. And
Yeah,
just kind of struggles we go through and that kind of thing. So
yeah,
I just
yeah,
kind of wanted to get your perspective and talk through some of it.
yeah. That'll be great. And it's like even though the answers kind of overlap, but I mean, 2 months later they're a little different again, and it needs to go over it again. And I always find I understand things more, so I love these talks. It often gives me a chance to pause and reflect in ways I wouldn't have otherwise. So I appreciate it. It's another way to get to another hour into the future.
Yeah, yeah.
That's in hardship.
So I think one of the most common things that a lot of writers go through is the comparison trap.
Yeah, yeah,
And you start writing on a platform and you see other creators, other writers, they're doing better than you are, and maybe they've been on the same on the platform the same amount of time. Maybe they haven't. Maybe you don't know. You don't know their journey and whatnot, but you still end up comparing yourselves to them. Like, especially like I try to look at it, uh, look at people in my own category at least, and
yeah,
that kind of narrows it down a little bit. But even then, it's like, well, I've been on this long, and they're in the same category, and am I not writing as well as they are? Am I not doing the same things? Maybe I'm not marketing myself as well as they are, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on, and you just question yourself.
yeah, yeah. And my thoughts on that are, yeah, I mean, the one thing I've been trying to convey to everybody to start with is that just all creatives in 2025 are facing enormous headwinds. Um, hate got a major victory in 2024. So
Yeah,
anybody who writes, with any kind of impulse for compassion or diversity or any kind of kindness, it's going to be hard for you this year. And yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. There's a certain insecurity. Writers tend to be vulnerable people, and we're just inclined to think we did something wrong when things don't go the way we want. And I mean, writers are kind people. We're creative people. You're trying to build things. And so we tend to look inward. It's like, what can we fix to do things? We're givers and all that stuff. And it's like, people like that are really wonderful. I love people like that, but at the same time, the world is a hard place for people like us. It just is. And yeah, when you look around and it's like if you've been on Substack for 2 years or whatever, and all of a sudden somebody else jumps on, and in 2 weeks they've got 2,000 paid subscribers. Well, what we always have to remember is there's just limitless money for people who do who spread hate content. It just is out there, and they artificially inflate that stuff. And it's just we see that there's all these hate podcasters out there who have limitless funding, and it's I mean, I'm old enough now, I'm 50, and it's like I was, when I was 25, I was inclined to think, oh, I can't get anything published anywhere because my writing must suck. That's what you think. But I'm just always been a stubborn person. And there's always been little indications that my writing didn't suck. I mean, in school, you're always like the top of your class and, in assignments or whatever. And then I was getting stories published here and there and I was getting paid for it. But then you get like, for every time you have a success, you have 20 other places where it's like, you're terrible, you're terrible. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
well, I just can't be. It can't be the fact I just can't be terrible. But then there's like little breakthroughs. Like I had a period on Medium and I was on Medium. I've been on Medium for like 5 years. But most of my followers came in like a 4-month window. Like, phew. And it's just sort of like every now and then you get these breakthroughs where the obstacles that have been put in place around you to kind of suppress all those, like any messages of kindness and compassion and like, gee, maybe we should use our money to help everybody rather than let the rich people hoard it all. There's obvious, and it's like, it seems like you're an extreme conspiracy theorist when you say, it can't be that they're actually legitimately suppressing us. The reality is they have enough money to suppress us. They do. They control all the mechanisms, of distribution of any kind of uh, media or any kind of argument, and they want to control their ability to hoard wealth. So it's just, you'll get those moments throughout the years where you get little breakthroughs, you get a sincere response, you get a viral article here and there, and you just have to be patient. And yeah, you just can never look at these other writers because you just don't know what the reality is of those situations ever. They might be in completely artificial, they might be completely bot content sponsored by
Yeah.
some billionaire just because they want to spread hate speech. And there's just all these different things, and maybe they're like somebody who's legitimately a good writer and they just took marketing classes so they know a couple tricks that we don't. But it doesn't come
Yeah.
down to your writing skill. And it really is important to keep spreading your voice and just persist. That's all you can do as a writer. We're in it to create the words. The money, is not really going to be there, but there's people that need to hear the things that we have to say. That was a long
Yeah.
rant.
No, oh no, that's all right. That's fine. I actually I started my writing journey on WordPress. I made my own WordPress site and did a blog on there, and I was mainly writing fiction and poetry. And I was I became part of a community there. There was some great people, great writers there, and we supported one another and did writing poetry prompts and things like that. And I gained a decent amount of number of subscribers. And then I went to Medium because I thought I can't monetize on WordPress really. I mean, I could do ads, but I was making, cents basically. And I thought, well, I'll go on Medium and I'll try to make some money. And I did pretty well. Starting off, of course, you have to get, or at that time, you had to get at least 100 subscribers to
Yeah.
be part of the partner program. And that
Okay.
was
You
that
came a
was
little
where I
later than
came
I
in.
did then. Yeah. What kind of year was
Yeah,
it, more or less?
I think it was 2022, the
Okay.
like fall of 2022 is when I joined the partner program,
Mm.
and I gained the needed amount of subscribers and started making the money at least enough to pay for the $5
Yeah.
membership and more, a little more,
Yeah.
and and then of course the boost came, and I got a bunch of boosts at one time. It was all queer, stuff, queer in the
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus community, all that writing. And I got to the point where I kind of figured out the formula, what
Yep.
they were looking for. I knew what to write to get a boost. And as soon as I was done with the piece, I almost knew that it was going to be boosted because
Yeah.
this is kind. Of what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And but then they changed. I all of a sudden I wrote something that I just knew, was
Yep,
going to be boosted, and it wasn't. And
yep,
I wrote something else, and no. And so I was like, oh, well, that's that. Then I got a freelance writing job. I was doing freelance writing throughout that, and that um, they were after writing on there a few months, they told me I was one of their top five writers, and that felt really good.
yeah,
That was kind of validation that my writing is good, and the boosts were also kind of a validation for me. But I also thought, well, are they just boosting me just because I'm writing queer shit? Uh, is that just what I mean? They want
yeah,
that
yeah,
diversity or whatever. So then I went for several months without getting a boost, and I was focused more on the freelance writing projects. And then I kind of got back into Medium because that stuff was slowing down. I got a boost on an AI on an article about AI. It's kind of satirical, but and that was boosted. And so then I was like, well, okay, so it's not just the queer stuff, because the AI writing about
yeah,
AI didn't have anything to do with LGBTQ. So that was kind of validating too. And so then my goal was I was like, okay, I want to get a humor piece boosted, and I know how hard that is because I've heard other people talk about it. Like they don't boost humor stuff very
yeah,
easily,
yeah,
But right after I made that goal, I was talking to my writers group about it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try. This is my goal. And right after that, I got one boosted, a humor piece, and
nice.
so I was really proud of myself. I was like, oh, that's finally I got like three different categories that I've gotten boosted in, and that was really that was really kind of a boost for myself,
Yeah,
and and of course, then they kind of changed again Medium and what they were looking for. And so then I stopped getting boosted again. That's when I
yeah,
went to Substack and I was like, all right, I just don't know if I can do Medium anymore. So that's
yeah.
when I came here and I've been here for just over a year. I just passed my year anniversary at the beginning of this
Oh,
month. So,
happy anniversary, 1 year at
oh
Substack.
yeah, thanks.
Oh, you've done so great though, and this has been a fun year to come to Substack with these live features, and this really has been so fun. Just this other opportunity to have these more kind of chats. I want to mention though, Joe writes, "Is it okay to take a? Whoops, I just lost it. Is it okay to take time out at times?" And yeah, I think that's critical. I mean, just stopping from writing. I have a hard time. I try to deliberately take a media detox day once a week, and it's like it's harder and harder to do. But I mean, you just let your phone, your battery die. Just deliberately don't charge your battery for a day. It's kind of the best way to do it. But I end up scribbling on things, and for me, it is a way to relax at this point. Writing is, but I think early on, there were days that I had to just not write at all for a while. Yeah, I don't think that's a problem. I wanna do, Robert Dana, he's here. Hi, Robert. Always nice to see him. He says, "No one in the mainstream media publishing industry amplifying the progressive message," and that's what we were talking about before, and I think
Right.
this and I've been talking about this with Will Fullwood too. It's like everything like any kind of success in American society I think you have to pass through a gatekeeper and demonstrate you're willing to be cruel. And I found that when I was in teaching, I had so much pressure from, like the mentor teachers. They're like, you're not being hard enough on the kids, And I'm just like, I don't have to scream at him. If I embrace it as like we're all on a learning journey together, they respond very well and they get good grades. And they were just no, because they couldn't look at the results and say that was okay, like this progressive mindset. They're like, unless you're being strict, you're not doing good. And it's like, but their scores went up from when you were here. So clearly they're like, no, no, no. So let me finish
That's
reading
kind of
Robert. Go ahead.
that's kind of how they are, like in teachings. Like this is the way we've always done it. We've always kids have to sit in the chairs and they have to,
Yep.
they have to follow these rules and blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
that may not work the best.
Yeah.
There may be other ways.
And of course, there's good teachers everywhere and always, but it's just any kind of change on a social level, and just the whole United States is so infused with this authoritarian idea, identity. And let's see, let me read. Yeah, like as Bob's saying here, the progressive message, kindness, values, and principles, diversity, inclusion, integrity. And it's like it's up to the non traditional media, that's us, to present
Yeah.
those values. And it says that means most independent voices are repressed and marginalized. And this is, when you talk like this, people are inclined to think that's just sour grapes. You're just mad because you're not having as much success. But I always say back to them, it's like, I've made a lot more in my career as a writer than many of these people that are in the big 3 publishing, right? Those guys that have had $100,000 in marketing, they sell $1,000 worth of books. And it's like I spent sell much more than that with no marketing at all. And they still can't see, and it's because they deliberately don't like my message. That's your message too. And a lot of when I started out on Medium, I was doing book reviews of independently published books because I always say,
Oh, yeah.
be the
Yeah.
person you want to be in the world. And I always found I found through that a lot of really, really good LGBTQ plus publishers. And so it's like there's a lot of them. I'll have to give you a list of these book publishers because and they were sending me these books. I'm like, they were just so well written. And it's sort of like, this isn't I don't this isn't my lifestyle, but it's like this is really, really fascinating and it's really well written. So it's I almost was like, gosh, I wish I had a manuscript to send to these publishers because 'cause they're
Yeah.
so good, but it's like, yeah, okay, that's not for me. But I'll have
Yeah.
to pass those on to you because there's some really good options out there.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
I do write a lot of fiction. I mean, I don't as much anymore just because I'm focusing so much on Substack and trying to gain on here. But as you were saying, taking a break and that kind of thing, it's also kind of hard when you think about as soon as you take a break, you're not posting notes and you're not getting your name out there and stuff.
Yeah,
People forget about you, you know? You gotta kinda keep
yeah.
yourself in front of them, don't you?
Yeah, that's why I pre-schedule a lot of stuff, though. I mean, I
Yeah.
always do my article, and then I publish the voice note as a podcast, like 3 months later. So I've got, I think, 90 articles scheduled to be published. So, yeah, you can take a couple days off here and there, but it would be pretty hard for me. I mean, just getting into writing, that's a unless you wanna do, like, 120 hours a week of writing, it's really not a calling for you, because it's just you gotta work 3 times as much, and it's just even if I'm not at the computer, you're thinking of stories and you're working stuff out. I'm doing my voice notes all the time. I got so much stuff to go through at this point, just to but it's like if I don't get it out of me, it agitates me. I'm more agitated if I'm not writing, I start getting jumpy because it's like there's things I need
Yeah.
to say, so yeah, we're stuck doing
Now
it.
I was gonna ask you about the audio podcast. So, d you, a few months ago, I started doing that. With the, like, my videos, I would download the audio to it and keep that separate and then upload it as an audio podcast separately. Is that how you do it?
I haven't done that. You're talking about, like, the lives, the audio from the
Yeah.
live? I
Yeah.
haven't done it that way, and I think in the new year, I'm gonna launch this new thing where I try to take more advantage. I'm gonna start another Substack, but so I could put it either, like, in the, um culture category or US news or something or politics or something. I'm gonna try doing that though. But you can repost some of your stuff from years ago or you can revisit it. And
Yeah.
I've done that a lot with Medium where I import my stuff from Medium. But yeah, I have to do more with the lives. Mainly all I've done is post my voiceovers as podcasts. Apparently, the lives do get picked up into the podcast, but I just haven't had as much success. It's like people don't wanna download them as much, so I don't know why that is, unless you upload it as a
No,
podcast.
that's exactly what I found out. Like, when I do click that, add
Yes.
audio to RSS feed,
Mhm,
and hardly get any downloads, just a
mhm.
handful. But when I download the audio
Yeah.
to the live video and upload it as a separate audio podcast, I get hundreds of
Yeah.
downloads
Yeah.
on that. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why that is. And
I've seen that too, yeah.
it's very odd.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing. I'm gonna experiment with that more next year when I finally start wearing out, but this year too has just been, like, so intense, like, all the things that we've
Yeah.
learned, and I think probably, if I just never wrote another word, I could go through all the stuff that has been sitting in notes from this year and just work on that for the rest of my life and just reprocess it all. So it's sort of like sometimes you need like just that creative dump. And this year has been a creative dump. But I mean, we've all just, had the veils ripped away or the blinders ripped away, I guess, like so many of the problems of American society. And we're just willing now to, and we're finding an audience that's willing to hear those things too. So it's that strike while the iron is hot sort of mentality. And that's
Yeah,
another thing in writing too. Like you were talking about the boost before. And I mean, the boost was such a good program because it was teaching us and some people looked at that as a negative that we had to write to the specifications of the boost. But that challenge was really useful, and it was really good. And if you met those standards, you would be making $500 on an article, sometimes. So it's like that was really good, and a lot of those stories, I'll read those from a couple years ago, and I'll bring them into Substack. I'm like, "Gee, this sounds a lot different than what I'm writing now." So just having that motivation to reach a certain standard, that's really good for writers, so I'm really grateful for that program. But like you said, there was a peak. There was times when I would get, like, 15 of 15 articles boosted in a month, and it's just like but all I would write was 15 articles too, and then
yeah,
lately it's been, maybe 1, more likely none for the last couple months. So, but even through that period, it would always be like I would hit a new month, and it seemed like they reset their expectations. So it took me like 2 articles to find what they were looking for. Then I could
yeah,
write for it until the end of the month. So it was a big full-on effort. It was good for us. It was a good challenge, but it's changed. So
yeah, and the titles too. I mean,
yeah,
I know titles are a big deal, especially on Medium. You had to kind of fit what they were looking for, and I don't think it's quite the same on Substack. I mean, titles I think are still important here, but
yeah,
they don't have quite. You don't have to tailor them like you did on Medium. I don't
yeah.
feel like. Do you feel you?
Medium Yeah, well, Medium deliberately didn't want you to have a fully optimized title. It was kind of annoying where so you had to get as close. This was like the alchemy of writing for Medium at that time. You'd write a really good story. It's like, okay, so now it's like I have to write this title that's as close to like an actually optimized title as possible, but you would get it wouldn't get boosted if your title was too good. So it's like if I knew the article was really good, I was like, okay, I'll give kind of a dud for the title just because I really want this to get boosted. And then you couldn't go back and change it because they'd get upset with you if you did that too. But yeah, a
Yeah,
fully optimized title, I like that co-schedule tool just to kind of go through and you get they rate your titles and it
yeah,
becomes this kind of like, I don't know, but it really does work. When you have a fully optimized title, you do get a lot more views on it. It gets seen as it becomes like a search engine hook, then a good title does. So yeah, that's a complex issue, but yeah, it's wide open on Substack. Medium, you had to be really careful about it. Yeah, somebody says
yeah.
Walter doesn't like my time. It's not me. I mean, it's I like to try to help people get the most that they can from their articles. And yeah, and if you don't have a title that a lot of times I'll scroll through and it's like somebody will submit a story to me. It's like this title isn't. You're not going to get any views with this title. I don't make the rules. It's just like, and I try to give people useful information, but it can be a little
I
frustrating in time.
I've used some of those title analyzers. Like I've used Monster Insights, and there were a couple others, but it was. I felt like for a while, I felt like I was kind of being dependent on them. I was like, and I, I thought, I really shouldn't just keep using this particular analyzer because it doesn't feel like it's very creative. I'm not being as
Yeah.
creative as I
Oh,
could
yeah.
be.
You do have to be careful. I wanna talk about Christy, though. She brought something up again here because she said you specifically called out my headline. So I remember what she was saying. I was trying to provide constructive criticism because it was what I read it I was scrolling through, and it's like, it's good to give feedback, and I didn't mean this to be I guess my comment did maybe sound more hostile than I intended. But when I was scrolling through, I saw a title, and it was something like, I don't wanna read your Substack. And it struck me as a little bit aggressive, the title did, and I was like and I just wanna say my first impulse upon reading this title was to block the author, which is sometimes is the case. And I wanted to just share I had that initial reaction, but I could see we didn't this is I didn't mean it as a hostile comment. I was trying to share an honest response, And so I apologize, Christy. I guess it did probably come across as pretty aggressive on my part, and that's the hardship of discussing things in a comment. But I just wanted to share. It's like, geez,
Yeah.
you know, my response to this title was that's kind of clickbaity, and I'm not interested. But it came across more as a criticism. So sometimes it's hard to convey that kind of a response.
I
Yeah,
did
there,
read her article, actually. It was
yeah, there
the,
it is.
yeah, no thanks, I don't want to
Yep,
read your Substack. I
yeah.
read that
So
actually
yeah,
because she was giving some tips on, like, when you go to click subscribe, or there's that little message that says no thanks or
yeah.
whatever. That's kind
Oh,
of
okay.
like kind of negative, like
Oh,
no thanks.
okay.
And
Yeah,
she was recommending that maybe you should change that wording. Instead of no thanks, I don't want to read your
yeah.
Substack. Maybe put something else in there that's a
That's
little
fair. You
more
know,
inviting.
yeah, that's a fault to some extent on my part, but it's I wanted to convey it's like sometimes there is a lot of stuff you get just on a quick scroll. Like, okay, I'm scrolling through these titles, and I saw a title that said, "No thanks, I don't want to read your Substack," and my first thought was, "Mm, all right, I'm going to block your Substack then." You know, it's like, and it's just like this is just. But we do have to remind people that it's like sometimes you are seeing things just on the quick scroll. And actually, lately, this is such an important topic because you know, some we have to you have to always be courteous in our responses because sometimes
Yeah,
you'll write a response and then it'll show up like as a response to somebody else's comment. So if you say something really hostile in a comment, somebody sees it and they're just like, oh, and then they're mad at you, and it's like, "I actually was trying to be mean to this other person, but I shouldn't have been mean in the first place." So it's just like 'cause a lot of the way times these comments, the way they're shown to us, it can come across negatively, and that's one of the reason why, you know, Medium is so anti the kinda clickbaity titles and the aggressive sounding titles. They can be very effective, though, but it is possible to write a title that drives people away too and makes people I mean, it's like some people would just block you for certain titles. So it is kind of important to hear that feedback. It's like, my first response to reading this was to block the author of this. That's important feedback. But yeah, I can see how it'd be also be like, that's kind of mean. So I'm glad Christy was here and we could talk about that because maybe I was having a bad day that day too. I mean, that happens. Someday I wake up and it's like so sometimes the fault is me. But all we can do
uh,
is share our honest reaction in the moment.
that brings up a good point, especially like commenting online. When you leave a comment, to you it may sound a certain
Mhm.
way, but in writing, if you can't read a lot of tone, or sometimes
Yeah.
sarcasm, or
Yeah.
whatever in text. And it happens in texting people back and forth on your phone or whatever. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
and it does help. Like, I do really like these lives where I can
Yeah,
say
we can
things here, and
move
I
things
can
forward.
convey what I really mean through my facial expression and my tone of voice and everything. And
Yeah.
so I think you kind of get to know people. Like, if somebody were to get to know you and saw that comment, they would be like, well, that doesn't
Yeah.
fit what I see his personality as, so there
Yeah.
must be some disconnect there or whatever. If they just saw that comment, they might
Yeah.
say, oh, that guy's a jerk. I don't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
or whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's important and it's good to have the lies and it's a great opportunity to talk about this. But yeah, the opportunity to smooth those kind of edges over is really important. But also too, it's like so much because I see so much stuff that gets me hostile because there's so much just false information that people are putting out as like real writer advice, you know, and there's just so much, and a lot of it is just kind of designed to play on people's insecurities. And so that's why
yeah,
as I become like a mama hen towards other writers. So, you know, it's just like, I don't want to read your Substack. It's like, well, what? But I mean, I have to block people all the time. I get so many, you know, just racially charged attacks and just hate mail and death threats and things like that. So, I mean,
yeah,
if I'd already gotten like that morning, like 5 death threats, and
yeah.
that's another thing.
That's what I was gonna say. If you've already gotten all of that, like if you're on a day where there's just so many trolls or whatever, and you're just in that mindset, you're like block, 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 and you just see
Yeah.
something else, you're like, ah,
Yeah. So that's the end of that. But yeah. Huh. She says no shade. It's cool you're here and addressing it live. So yeah, I'm glad we got to chat about that, Chris. That's another one of those cases. Sometimes you find too, you're like, ah, this is gonna take longer to explain than I can do in a comment. So it's nice to have the opportunity to talk about that.
yeah,
But yeah, and Christy must know too, like, because there's just so much stuff out there. And this is one of the reasons I like to have all my content free And I just encourage people too, because there's so many, because I don't promise people. It's like I know about writing, but it's like I can't with any certainty say the advice that works for me is going to work for anybody else. So I hesitate to like to charge people. It's like, oh, I'm not gonna sit here and promise and say if you pay me, $80 a year, you'll be able to sell. Might not be the case, but ask me questions, and it's like I want to avoid people getting into scams. It's like if you can avoid
Yeah.
having somebody take advantage of you, please send a message, run it by me, and I'll do my best to answer. And it's like sometimes, because she made a good point too. It's like, yeah, if it was a really, really popular article, that can be like false positive. Because it's like, even though you got a lot of likes, maybe it was kind of polarizing and you lost some people tso it's one of
Yeah.
those, that kind of stuff's always in play. So it's wonderful she came to tune in, seeing me here. So I guess I wasn't
Well,
all that mean in the comment.
well, she was one of the people I had on my live. Just I think it was just maybe last week or so. But and I've been on her program too with Dre Beltrami. But anyway, yeah, going back to the charging people and stuff. I was one of the things I was thinking about for maybe next year is doing like some fiction and poetry, maybe having
Mhm.
a different publication for that kind of stuff and putting it behind a paywall. Because, like, I mean, if I were going to write a book, of course, I would charge people for the book. People would have to buy the book.
Yeah.
And if I'm putting it on Substack, it would only make sense to charge people for that content rather than just saying, well, here it is for free, but if you feel like paying me, because
Yeah.
I kind of equate that to having a stack of books. If I would go to a book signing, it's like, well, here's a stack of books. You can take them for free, but,
Yeah.
here's a tip jar.
That's funny you said that because I wrote an article about that one time because it was like it's easier to ask somebody to just give you $5 for nothing than it is to sell a book.
Oh,
For
yeah.
some reason.
Yeah.
But it's like I've had, and my perspective on this has changed a little bit too because Elizabeth Silic LaRue, because I always keep my stuff free. But Elizabeth Silic LaRue runs an immigration business. And so it doesn't make sense for her to have her stuff be for free because she's trained as a lawyer. So it's like, okay, that's a business. Yeah, you should have to pay for that.
Yeah.
I keep my
Right.
stuff free because I'm like, I'm trying to keep you guys from getting scammed by all these fakers who pretend that they can, give you all this writing advice. So that's kind of a different and also, I forget who it was. Christina God had an expert, Sarah Fay, I think is her name, and she actually said that internally within Substack they found it was more successful. You got more subscribers if you had it for free. But that, I mean, again, that
Oh,
was like
yeah.
that was like 2 years ago though, and
Oh,
so
okay.
who knows if that's still the case? And that's the other thing; these things change.
Yeah.
I think the idea of having a whole new it might be good to launch your thing, having everything be free, and then you could go to paid after a couple months. That could be something you could try. There's a lot of options. And in the past too, they said you should do everything as sections within the same newsletter. But the problem with that is then you're not able to be in different categories. And so if you are doing something that's in like the
Oh,
fiction
yeah.
category, perhaps it does
Yeah.
make more sense to have it be a whole new newsletter. So again, it's like nothing is, written in stone. A lot of these things, it'll be interesting to see how it works. And like I said, I'm trying to launch something else, next month. I want to just kind of bring back some of the old stories. I want to have a publication where it's all positive stuff. I want to force myself to write one or two positive stories a week just to keep me from going nuts so I
Yeah, I
don't
was
get
gonna
all
say maybe
punchy.
that'd make you feel better.
It would. And then I wouldn't be all punchy and overreact when I saw something and like get all sound like a grumpy old get off my lawn type artwork thing. And I don't
Yeah.
intend to be like that, but every now and then you're having a bad day.
Yeah, and one of the things I started this year was going live with the baking videos, cooking and baking videos, the gay baker, the gay chef or whatever. So,
Oh, those have been great.
and
Yeah, I see those going by. They always seem delightful.
yeah, and I thought about doing some kind of cookbook, and if I came up with original recipes, then I was talking about this with Christy the other day about if I put out original recipes, I would maybe want to put that behind a paywall because kind of going back to the book kind of thing, if I were to create a cookbook, I would want people to buy the cookbook. So if I have original
Yeah,
recipes, maybe putting them behind a paywall. But yeah, I mean, and I understand, like, at first I might like, well, and that's one of the good things about Substack is, like, in your article, you can create this, um, what do they call it? The paywall, like within the article, you can cut it off, like, beyond here, you have to pay to see the rest of it or whatever. So maybe, like,
yeah,
if I were to write a portion of my stuff and they see that they like it, then they would pay for the rest of it. I don't know. These are kind of things I'm going back and forth with, and not really sure
yeah.
what the best
What
choice is.
What's your response when you're reading an article and the paywall comes in? How do you feel like when you come across that?
Um, yeah, I know what you're saying. And well,
Well, I was honestly asking. I wasn't trying to get you to say I hate it, but it's like I
no,
personally do.
I really don't hate it. I kind of, I wish I could read more of it. It's like, if I like it, I'm like, oh man, I wish I could do the rest of this, but I just can't afford it, right? I can't afford to, upgrade
Yeah,
for every Substack.
and
But
that's kind of
there
because
are
it takes. Go ahead.
well, there are plenty of other Substack publications that are free, and
Yeah,
so, okay, I can't pay for this one. Well, that's just how it is. I'll go to the other ones that I can read and read for free or whatever.
and because sometimes the way I look at it is it takes so much effort to get somebody to find your content and then to click on the title and
Yeah,
then to start
yeah,
reading it, and it's just sort of like, and then all of a sudden you like turn them away before they even finish. That's kind of my, but again, it's like my objectives are different than other objectives. So maybe that does make sense if you're doing you're you're writing a recipe and they're halfway and they're like, wait a minute, how long do I put it in the oven for? I can't.
right.
I've
Yeah,
wasted all
yeah,
this money on ingredients.
yeah. That's true.
You're gonna get
And
it.
the other thing is, I all the rest of my stuff is free, so they can read a lot of my, like, all my on my main publication. Brandon Ellrich is so gay. I've got all my satirical, my humorous content. I don't paywall any of that, and so if they like me, if they want to support me, there is all of that that they can read for free. And maybe this section is paywalled or something. I don't know if that would. I don't know how people would feel about that part of it, and maybe just a completely different publication is paywalled, or
Yeah,
some things, because I see some people that only paywall certain articles and the rest of them are free.
yeah,
They don't put paywalls in every article, and that may be a choice too. I don't know.
yeah. I guess
It's hard.
and it's it because like if you're trying in new categories too, that might get you exposure to new audiences. So I think that's really interesting. I think I would because then I always was following the rule where it said create sections within your existing. But if you're doing something kind of radically different, I think there is a real benefit in having a whole
Yeah,
different and yeah, just kind of seeing how it goes, seeing what kind of how many pledges you get. I don't know. It's kind of you could do some. I could do some more research because at the time, like 2 years ago, they were like the paywalls tend to push people away, is what they were saying. But the conclusions might be different now. So go check it again.
yeah,
But like as I want to go back to this comment though that Bob Dana made, where he was just saying he's like, how do we get a breakthrough into mainstream media? He's talking with progressive ideas. He's like everyone. Um, he's like everyone, even MS Now and other quote unquote progressive, have sold out. The big names, mostly ex Republicans, are coming to Substack. And that's just the other thing. I think, that's just a big thing all writers have to be mindful of is just there's always going to be this effort to push aside, voices like ours,
yeah,
and like kind of establish a kind of standard norm. So people just have to be deliberate in who they support. I don't think we are ever going to be seen on the news. They're never going to invite us to go be, offer our opinions on things in any mainstream
right,
media source because they don't want that kind of perspective anywhere. So, but people want to hear it though. So that's the thing that's in our favor.
yeah, yeah. So I've also been looking at possibly other platforms to add besides Substack, because for me, Medium, it just really has, really gone
Yeah.
downhill, and
Yeah.
I'm almost to the point where I'm like, I'm just gonna downgrade to a free subscription, and I'll
Yeah.
leave my stuff there if people want to read it or whatever. But I'm not going to delete my account because that I feel like that would be kind of pointless. But I could at least I could downgrade to a free account, so I'm not having to pay out the $5 a month and not even making it back. You know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. So m- medium, it seems, yeah, like I said, Robin has been having good luck. She says lately with like listicles, which is kind of weird because that was,
yeah, she told me that too.
yeah. So, but it's like, and that's kind of useful. It's good to have your writers groups to tell you. But I mean, my earnings really dropped. They've been implementing a couple changes. And it seems like every time they implement a new change, they're like, we're going to now pay you for this. And then my earnings go down again. We're going to pay you for this. Then my earnings go down. But I mean, I have such gratitude for Medium. It really was the first platform I was really able to get an established following, so that's good. So I and it's just it only costs me the time to upload my articles I'm doing on Substack. I'm putting them on Medium, and I do a column for the writing cooperative. So I write something specifically for that. So it's still paying me more than the price of being signed up. But it does
Yeah,
seem like you have to put on like 30 articles a month on Medium to really kind of generate any momentum there. It's a little bit different. I mean, I do even more on Substack. I do my 3 posts per day, but it's all just kinda like, between a live and an article and the voiceover from 3 months ago, that's how that kinda works. I was talking with Wendy the Druid. I don't know, do you know Wendy the Druid? Yeah,
oh yeah, I go on with her
and
usually about twice a week for our trauma talk, and
oh,
yeah,
yes.
I saw the live that she was on talking. She was talking about Beehive.
Yeah, and I think Beehive is a good option. I've worked on Vocal, and I didn't have any. I won one of their contests before I went to Medium, and so I spent, like, way too
Oh
long
yeah,
on Vocal. But there's more things that pop up all the time, and one of the good options for people is to just do your constant submissions. There are still, like, smaller publications. So my process used to be I would write an article and submit it to just a smaller market, something that would offer, like, 2 or 300 bucks for the story. And if it got placed, great. I got money for that. And if it didn't get placed, I put it on Medium. And so now I could go back to that process, but these days my focus has mainly been on Substack. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how things change. They always change.
yeah. And the other thing is the time. I spend a lot of time on Substack. You know, the videos, and then afterward editing, putting in my links and things like that, and in addition to doing the articles and the audio podcasts, all of that, just and notes, trying to keep up with putting notes out there because that drives a lot. I've gotten a lot of subscribers
Mm,
just from notes, and I'm trying to do it all, and it's hard
yeah.
to do all that and think about having another platform to worry
Yeah.
about and putting
Yeah.
stuff out on.
I find the trick with that is a lot of it is you have to take your maximum energy in the morning and just get those articles done. Like you shouldn't
Yeah,
wake up and go straight to your comments because that exhausts you too, just reading the comments. But that's something you can do at the end of the day when you're kind of fatigued. Okay, I'll read and respond to the comments at the end of the day. But it's like get up in the morning, get like 2 articles written, like solid things that's because that remains the meat and potatoes of all your writing. And it is, it's easy to get distracted. Like this morning I was kinda tired, so I was just writing notes instead. I'm just composing some kinda like, word doodles is what I was kinda thinking them, like kinda poetic musings. I'll do that for a bit. But you're right, it works. But it's like, you have to kinda pay attention to your own self too, what you can stand to do. But yeah, it's
yeah,
easy to get caught up in that trap where it's like you wake up in the morning and you try to comment on 50 articles, and then you try to write some notes, and it's like, "Okay, now it's time for me to sit down and finally write my own article," and you don't have any creative energy left. So figuring out
yeah.
how to maximize your creative energy is a really important part of this whole process. And I don't obey my own rules half the time either. I get lazy and do other things. So
Yeah, and I do schedule my like I've got all my articles at the beginning of the month. I pretty much had all my articles scheduled for December because I knew that I was going to be doing all these lives, and I
yeah.
want to read up a little bit on the people that I'm talking to, make notes, and make the live video worthwhile. I want people to enjoy it and stuff. And there were like 3 or 4 people during the month that had never gone on live video before, and they
Mhm.
chose to do it with me. And
Yeah.
I thought that's really cool, and I want to make that worthwhile as well. And but yeah, I love the scheduling part because I like to plan things out. I don't like to do things last minute. If I've got stuff set aside ahead of time, I love that. I love the planning of it. And I only do a couple of articles a week, but I'm also in the humor space, and that's that, that can be kind of difficult. I don't know how if people understand how difficult it is to do humor writing, come up with something original, these jokes and stuff to make it entertaining all the way through the article and stuff. And I can't come up with stuff just one after another just like that. It takes some effort to plan it out, and like I don't want to make it too long and boring. I want to put enough jokes, one liners in
Yeah.
here that'll keep people reading. There's a lot to think about in that aspect too.
That's interesting what you're talking about there, just like the creative process. And what I'm finding, especially this year, because in previous years I was a lot more deliberate about the things I was saying. And maybe I was just being delusional because maybe you think you can pick up things in your own work, but it's like it needs to be changed when you're consciously reading it. But I think writing is a matter of just putting your conscious mind aside and just kind of writing from the subconscious, like as much as like when you're driving your car home from work and you don't never pay attention at all. I think that's
Yeah.
the kind of state of mind you have to be in for writing. And it's sort of like that's where your dreams come from anyway. So if you just kind of can maintain enough conscious awareness so you're writing it. So I can get up at this point and just buzz out a couple articles, and then I'll have to go back and reread them to even see what I said in those articles. Like sometimes it's a surprise when I'm doing the voiceover,
Oh yeah.
which is kind of a weird it's kind of a weird thing to say as I'm just pumping it out. But I mean, this whole year has been such a year of anxiety and desperation, and it's just sort of like I guess I've just kind of come to trust that, whatever's going on in my subconscious mind is stuff that I'm willing to have out there as a reflective of me. I guess that's more me than my conscious mind is, like the things I'm deliberately composing to say, as opposed to just when I'm like doing my primal scream type articles.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not trying to write stuff that's particularly funny, I guess. Although I hope there's humor. There's humor in a lot of things I write. Sometimes it comes out just because I'm being sarcastic. I mean, I like a sarcastic kind of attitude that morning. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things I do. I'll compose with my voice notes too. I'll be out walking and I'll just start talking, and yeah, the world just goes away when I do that. So I guess that's a lot of having the world go away is a lot of the reason I write.
Yeah, I really should. I should look into doing more voice notes and stuff because I always think, kind of like when you wake up from a dream and you think you'll remember it, but the more time goes by, you're like,
Yeah.
what was that? And that's kind
Yeah.
of the same way if you're thinking of an idea while you're out and or driving or walking or whatever, and you think, oh, that's a really good idea. I'll remember that later. And then you get home and it's like, what? Well, what was that? I know there was something I meant to remember and write down later, and it's gone.
Yeah, and that's the worst feeling in the world for a writer because every time you lose an idea, it's like the greatest idea ever, and you're pissed off about it for 3 days. So then not only do you lose that idea, you lose the next 3 days of productivity. And so I call it just capturing your ideas. And every time when you get a new idea, it's like, "Oh, here's the idea for an article." If you can, and it's so much faster. I used to send myself texts, like you try to write down a couple sentences and then hope you could compose the article from that. But if you
Oh
can just
yeah.
sit down, because it's so much faster to just talk into your voice recorder on your phone and just like record a 7-minute note, and then I go to TurboScribe and I have it generate a transcript for me, and then I write my article off that transcript. And it's never been the case that I couldn't recapture that inspiration because you've basically written the whole article then. You've and it's like it needs to be shifted around and stuff. And I've actually gotten a lot better at it because when I first started out, I'd have to, take the bottom section, put in the top. Now the articles are kind of coming out fully formed in the transcript.
Oh
But
yeah.
this is after a process of doing this for a year, so it'll change that way too. But yeah, those transcribing tools are really good these days. So yeah, I would just recommend doing that. I mean, but I've got like 200 voice notes on my phone that I haven't had time to go through yet. So it's like I hope some of them. I hope they're all still relevant. That's the other thing about the Boost, though. When we were writing for Medium's Boost, the idea that trained us to write evergreen content because Boost preferred
Oh,
evergreen content. So that was a really useful tool for that year and a half to write the evergreen stuff. And it's kind of lingering, even though I'm not deliberately thinking about it. But once you train yourself to do that for a year, and like you said, get to the point where you absolutely know you're going to get something boosted, it sticks around. So it's like anything you can produce now, all the content you can capture or the creative capture, the inspiration, the more that you can do, and then it's like it's there to be harvested and turned into more polished works later on. Never run out of stuff to write about that way.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, it seemed like, well, I guess it went back and forth as far as medium evergreen content. The one I got a boost, just in October. It was the first boost I'd had in, like, a year,
Mhm.
but I hadn't been writing on Medium also. But and then I wrote a couple others after that. But the one I got boosted was not so much an evergreen content. It was about, well, I talked to you about it, actually, Matthew Shepard, and, um,
Ah, yes, yes, yes,
the but so that one was boosted, and then I wrote run about, World AIDS Day, and I was
yeah,
sure that that one, it was nominated, but it, got
yeah,
rejected. And I
yeah.
wrote another one about Transgender Awareness Week, and that one was rejected, even though it was nominated. So I was like, okay, here we are back again.
I think I think the Matthew Shepard one, it's because that's I mean, it's for that month, but then it's like it's gonna be relevant every year after that. It's gonna be relevant into the
Yeah,
future,
that's true.
So
Yeah,
I think that did have an evergreen quality to it. I thought it was really important an important article.
yeah. But
Mhm.
the other two I thought were very similar. World AIDS Day, celebrating the kind of the progression we've made, fighting AIDS and HIV, that kind of thing. But I don't know.
Yeah.
There, who knows what they're, and it may come down to the boost, the ones who read it, and
Yeah,
from
yeah.
one to another, it varies.
That's absolutely it, and you don't know yeah. It's like maybe a couple of them just yeah, we don't know the qualifications of the curators, and sometimes
Right.
you see that where you're like, "Okay, this is" I did had that happen to me once where I'd submitted a short story to some publication without looking into it enough, and this guy just wrote me this scathing response to my short story, and I was feeling really bad about it, and then I went and like, "Wait a minute, who is this guy?" And I went and checked him out. He had, like, this publication that he did himself that had, like, 5 readers, and I'm like, "What why did I even do this? Why did I do this
Yeah.
to myself?" So you gotta be careful about where you're submitting. It wasn't gonna be good for me, like a $5 payout to get that, just attacked. Yeah.
So, what's something that you've discovered on Substack that you feel like is kind of a breakthrough moment this year?
Yeah. It's absolutely been these lives, and like we were talking about with Christy before, just that opportunity to because there's so many people you try to learn about things and you're trying to understand things, but there's always that opportunity for something to just land wrong for a million different reasons, and so it's just been delightful to get a chance to talk to people and cover over those, illusions of a disagreement, I guess.
Yeah.
This is maybe a good way to call it because we don't really disagree. It's just that the way I heard your word was different than how you intended it to be said, and I'm careless. I had a person just wrote me the other day, and they're really upset with me, and I had no idea what it was they were said about, and so I'm just like, "Gee, I'm sorry I provoked that reaction," and was but I could tell the pain in the voice, and so it's just getting to that point where we can 'cause I think we're sitting here at the end of 2 decades of social media training us to fight with each other over nothing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's really hard to even have constructive criticism, and I say, "Hey, the way that landed might drive away followers," and it turns into a fight, and it's like, doesn't need to turn into a fight, but I see how that happens, so hopefully we're at the start of a kinder, gentler, internet. We certainly need it.
Yeah.
I talked to the guys with the Together Foundation. He's talking about making an algorithm that actually promotes positive content. Wouldn't that be great? That would change
Oh,
everything.
yeah. That
So
that
just
would be a
just
change.
awareness of this problem. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that would be a change, especially when we've seen that, like, on Facebook, where
Oh,
their algorithms are meant to
make us
put
hate
stuff
each other.
out there that are contentious, and it's
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
yeah. That's so critical for writers too to know that that's going on and to spread it. And again, that's another place the mainstream media has failed because they just haven't, and then, our politicians just don't appear to appreciate the danger of it. They just reluctantly accept that, like, America is embracing hatred, and they never bother to check if that might be an artificial trend that's pushed by, like, these oligarchs who own all of our means of communicating with each other. We need
Yeah.
protection from that. Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on the hour. I don't want to keep you too long because I know you're recovering from your cold and whatnot.
Oh,
So hopefully you're gonna get over that
oh, it's
completely
been
before Christmas at least.
yeah, I've been fixing it by eating a lot of cookies. My kids brought home
Oh,
a lot of cookies the other day, so I've just been gobbling up the cookies. They make the cookies and I eat them, so it's a pretty good
yeah,
relationship
that's a
that
pretty
way.
good deal. Yeah.
Do we have any last questions? Let's see, mate. Let's see. Somebody says anger and hatred make more money than kindness. Well, they that's one of those illusions, I think. But yeah, it's like there's so much more money that's given to hatred than there is. But I think actually kindness does actually create more things. It's just that the whole world is so upside down, and that's all we've seen at this point. We have to just stop accepting it. And even now at 50, it's like all these years you're trying to understand more about yourself. Took me 50 years to get to this point. There's still so much more to learn. And this last year, I probably learned more in this last year than all the other years combined. And especially this wonderful community, give me the opportunity to get to meet you, Brandon, and talk to all the wonderful people here. And it's helped in such a hard year to establish these communities. So I really appreciate you. I'm glad you invited me to this today. It's nice to not talk about politics. And yeah, I'm
Yeah,
wishing
yeah.
you a great holiday.
Yeah, the same. It was the same with Ellie Leonard. I had Ellie on earlier in the month, and I wrote a message to her and said, "Are you tired of talking about politics? You can come on and talk about your book."
Yeah.
So we talked about Death of a Mayfly, and I know
Oh,
you've been narrating that, and that I've really
that was
enjoyed her
such a
book,
fun
and
way to do a promotion.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, that kinda came along when it's like I saw her first chapter and I started reading it, and I'm just like, I always get a better sense of a book if I read it out loud, so I'm like, "She doesn't have a voiceover, I might as well just record it," and it's been
yeah,
just kind of I'm like, "This is actually a fun way to promote somebody else's book," because then I can share it with my followers that I've been reading it, and because some people like the way I read my stories, which is just a delightful surprise. If I could pivot to that where I'm just reading people's books, and I speak with a little bit better voice than I'm speaking with now.
yeah,
I do I do my voice to put my kids to sleep, into my microphone so I can do a little bit better job, and no, that's just been really fun. So anything we can do to help support other writers is always something that just makes me happy.
yeah. And yeah, I would recommend that to anybody that's listening to their articles to do to audio voiceovers because I always prefer that to
Yeah.
I can go around and have my headphones in and just listen to the article. And
Yeah.
somebody commented on that today, actually, on my article. They're like, they loved my voiceover, and that was really nice to hear. So I'm going to continue
Yeah.
to do that. But
Well, they get to
well, I
they get to
really
know us a
appreciate.
little more. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
sorry. No,
No, I was just gonna
I
say they
really
get to know us.
appreciate you coming. Yeah, get to know you better, and yeah, kind of like the lives do. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but I appreciate you coming on. I'm really glad you made the time for this, and I hope it was helpful for anybody listening. And you know,
Yeah.
look, they can watch the playback, of course, if you're not here. But
Yeah.
um, so have a
And
Merry
I hope everybody
Christmas, and I
sends
really
something.
appreciate you coming. And everybody else, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, or whatever you celebrate. Have a good time.
Yeah. Be safe, have fun, try to get some rest from the craziness, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. Like I said, I don't like to see people get scammed, so send a message, I'll answer.
All right, thanks a lot.
Yep, thanks so
See
much,
y'all
Brandon. You
later.
have a great holiday.
All right, thanks.